Okay, hello everybody. Welcome back to Workflows and Espressos. Happy Tuesday. It's weird saying that because it's not Tuesday when I'm recording this. I have hiccups, I'm sorry, but it is Tuesday if you're listening, or hopefully it's Tuesday if you're listening on time. Either way, I hope you're having a great week. I am excited to kick off the next episode 12. So, first thing that we just have to talk about is Taylor Swift's concert kicked off. I'm recording this today, May 9th. And when this episode comes out, it'll be after the first weekend of the Eras Tour in Europe. I am a Swiftie myself, but I also have loved following the Eras Tour to see the impact that it's had on our industry and the economy as a whole. So I'm super excited to study the data in Europe and see what this means for European cities as she spends the summer touring different cities for the next, I think, like 4 months. And really more than anything, I wish I was there. But she is in Paris right now. And I have seen so many people that I know and people that I don't know on the internet that have flown to Paris from the US to see her. So I can only imagine what occupancy is looking like in Paris right now. But I will be following it all summer and giving some periodic updates. And, I also just love Taylor, right? So any excuse that I have to talk about Taylor, I'm going to be doing it. I'm going to be taking the opportunity. The next thing that I want to talk about is Unreasonable Hospitality, which we have discussed many times before on Workflows and Espressos, but there is one company that I love called Element. And if you're a liquid IV person or an electrolyte person, like electrolytes in your water, so there's this company called Element, very similar to Liquid IV, although I wonder if that's like offensive to them because they're considered competitors. But anyway, they always talk about how they're different than Liquid IV. I do prefer Element to Liquid IV, obviously, as I'm talking about this company. And I have tried a couple, I've tried Noon. There's one called Waterboy that I've never tried, whatever. I've picked Element and I'm loyal to Element. Love Element. It's my thing. So I love this flavor called lemon habanero. I'm I love a spicy drink. So they have this electrolyte packet, again, similar to Liquid IV, that is like a lemon habanero flavor that you just put in your water and you drink it. And I got hooked on it last summer. Come to find out, this fall, they decided to discontinue lemon habanero, which was very depressing to me. And as someone who's routinely ordered on their website this one flavor, they sent me a box of lemon habanero and said, hey, we know you love this flavor. We're sorry we're discontinuing it. We have to make room for other flavors. Clearly it just wasn't a top seller and probably their lowest seller because everyone says it's too spicy, but I just love it so much. And we know you love this flavor, so we wanted to send you a box to say thank you. And we hope that you get to enjoy this, as it's going to be gone soon. So I remember thinking damn, this is a really good company with incredible customer service. So fast forward, Christmas time comes around. They release a couple of new flavors for Christmas. They send me a free sample of all the new flavors they release, like Merry Christmas. We know that you're a loyal customer to Element. We want to send you a couple of samples of these new flavors that we're rolling out for the winter season. Okay, again, amazing. This is so, I just you feel so special, right? And they send this all certified FedEx. So last week, I come home from work and there is a big package on my doorstep. And I live in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, which we all know, and it is very hard to get mail here. And if you don't send something FedEx or UPS, it goes to a PO box and then I have to go pick it up and it's just this entire thing, right? Things that people don't tell you before you move to a ski town. I'm telling you right now, look up the mail system before you move to a ski town. Anyway, so I come home last week from work and there's a huge black box on my doorstep and it says Element on it. And I am so excited. I open it up and it is a pack of sparkling Element waters, which they're releasing. They hadn't yet released it. And it was essentially I'd have to look up what it said, but it essentially said, "Thank you so much for being an Element Insider," which is what they refer to as their loyalty program members. "We are releasing these electrolyte sparkling waters in the next couple of weeks, and we wanted you to try them first as a loyal customer of ours. Here's a free box." And let me tell you, I have thought about it every day since. What the gestures that this company does for its customers and it is explicitly customers that purchase Element directly on their website, I figured out, because I've had friends that buy it on Amazon who have not gotten these same perks. And it just, I don't know, it starts to get your wheels turning, similar to when you go and stay in a nice hotel or at a nice vacation rental company, and you start to think, how can I incorporate this into my own business? I just love this company. I actually think I think it was Andrew McConnell posted about it on LinkedIn. He must be an Element customer too, because he got them. And I just loved it. I thought it was such a great example of what unreasonable hospitality is. And I've told this story several times since, and probably I have a friend who buys Element on Amazon, and she said, "Oh my gosh, I'm only going to buy it on their website now." So it's at least impacted her. And I can only imagine how many other people are now Element Insiders because of this really fun thing that they do for their customers. So I wanted to tell you that. It's always fun to tell cool stories of really great hospitality in the hospitality space. Let's kick off this episode. So I know I was supposed to do this last week, but then I got distracted by my non-negotiables, which I really wanted to talk about. And so I am going to talk today about all things conferences. This is a hot topic right now for many reasons. There have been clearly some structural changes within Verma the last couple of weeks. Okay. So I want to talk all things conferences. There have been some clear structural changes at Verma over the past couple of weeks, which has been a hot topic on LinkedIn and just in general in the industry. And it's really sparked conversation of conferences and what conferences are found to be the most beneficial. Are conferences worth going to? Is it worth going to Verma? Should you spend your money on conferences? Should you spend your money on other educational opportunities? And so I wanted to take a moment and give you a moment. I wanted to take 30 moments, in fact, and a moment is a minute. So I'll be here for the next 30 minutes talking to you about this. I wanted to talk about my take on conferences and all of my thoughts over the past couple of weeks and just in general. So let's get into it, shall we? Okay, so let's start with the heavy hitter. What are the best conferences to go to? So I asked this question 2 weeks ago now on LinkedIn, and I gave the answer last week, but I'm going to circle back to it. I think we got, 25 responses. Like, it's not 100 people didn't respond, but 25. It was a good amount of people. And DARM, which is the Data and Revenue Management Conference that's put on by Amy Hino every year, was far and away the top contender. I want to say that almost every person, except for maybe 2 people, said DARM, hands down. It is the most educational. It has the best content. It has the best sessions, the best keynote speakers. We love Amy. It's so worth going to. So as someone who has been to DARM multiple times, I 1000% agree. DARM has been the conference that I have left with the most takeaways. Last year, Will Gadara spoke as the keynote at DARM, and it was the best keynote I've ever seen at any conference I've ever been to. And there's something about Amy's conferences. She also puts on the Women's Summit, where as someone who used to be a property manager herself, she just truly understands the content that people want to hear and really takes feedback to heart about how she can make it better. And I think because data and revenue management is so important in our industry and is really the heartbeat of how we continue to progress our businesses and become more successful, especially as things continue to be automated and data focused, versus what it looked like 10 years ago in the industry. I cannot recommend DARM enough. Like if you only could go to one conference a year, it would 100% be DARM. It should 100% be DARM. It would for me. So it also sounds like there is a lot of people that agree with me on this. I have also found there to be great value in property management specific conferences or property management system specific conferences. So property management specific conferences like Streamline Summit or Trax Property Management Conference, which is called Next, that happens historically in the fall. I have found to be content helpful, right? Like when we're a Track customer. So when I go to Track's Next conference, it's only Track users. It's softwares that have integrations with Track or can at least work closely with Track. And all of the other attendees are Track users, of course, right? So there's so many different people that you can meet and talk to about pain points or best practices and processes in general. And so I found it to be helpful, especially for the daily users on your team, if that's not you. And in my case, it's not me, for the daily users who are really in the trenches to go to those property management specific conferences. And then, of course, you have VRMA International, which does get a lot of flack. So my take on VRMA International, I don't think it's a hot take. It's I think less controversial than many people's takes. I have had a great time at VRMA International in the past. I think I've probably been to five or six VRMA Internationals over the last couple of years. There have been years that I've skipped. I have always felt like that's the conference to go to if you want to meet with a vendor, because every vendor goes to VRMA International. There are certainly some conferences where I've wanted to meet with someone and they weren't going to be attending DARM, right? Or because they weren't focused in the data or revenue management space, right? Or there have been some times, which I will say like Breezeway still goes to DARM, but in the past, I found that I wasn't able to meet, like not every single vendor in the space goes. Or same thing with a property management specific conference, right? Like not every single vendor is going to be there, including other property management systems. So if you're really looking at switching, it is the time to meet any vendor you possibly can, because anyone who's anyone is going to be there on the supplier side. Also, it's been great just meeting different people as a whole. There are so many different sessions that you get to see people speak that you otherwise maybe haven't connected with, whether they're a supplier or a property management company. So the downfalls of that is I do think in terms of networking in general, although you get to meet a lot of people, the conference is so big that it's almost overwhelming. And I find that I stick to the people that I know when I go to DARM, whether it's the group that I'm with, like from the company that I'm with, or whether it is like a couple of industry friends, right? It's just so big and there are so many people that it's almost harder to connect. It's like, I used to think back in my 20s, back when I was a young buck and not getting married, which by the way, I am getting married 6 months from yesterday. So exciting. So I used to think New York City was like, oh my gosh, wow, I guess if you date in New York City, you can find someone. And I remember people being like, no, it's so overwhelming because there's so many people in New York that like, it's so hard to date here or even find friends for that matter. And I think the case is true for VRMA International. I also, as many sessions as there are, the material can be stale. And it almost feels like every year there are the same sessions over and over again. So once you reach a certain level of experience, it doesn't seem as worthwhile to go to those sessions and sit in on those content conversations. That being said, I still go back to VRMA International every single year. So it clearly has enough to kind of keep me hanging on. And I think that's true for a lot of people because it is like everybody does go. So pick it for the vendor side. Don't pick it for the actual content in the sessions. I'm curious on everyone's opinion on that. Maybe hot take, maybe controversial, but you know what? We're all thinking it. Okay. So once you decide like what are the best conferences to go to, of course, there are so many more. There are a lot of like niche specific conferences. The 100 collection has a summit every year if you're a part of the 100 collection. There are other small summits and retreats that happen that are invite only that I have found to be very informative and just a nice, like smaller way to get to know people. Honestly, that's another reason why I love DARM is it's smaller than Verma International. And so networking is so much easier to do. So once you've kind of picked your conferences, determine a budget for what this looks like. Like say you want to go to 3 or you want to go to 2, how much is it going to cost? And do you have the funds to allocate to this type of education? And if you do, amazing, go to the conference. If you don't, it's okay to skip a year. I have done that many times in the past, or the company that I've been with has decided like, hey, we're going to sit out this year. We really need to focus on X. Or like, hey, one year we were transitioning from Escapia to track. Like we didn't have a single second in the day to go to a conference, let alone not work 12 hours a day. So we skipped that year and that's totally okay. I think I'm someone that struggles with FOMO in general, but I just remind myself this is a way to move yourself forward professionally and your company forward professionally. And if you don't feel like you're going to get that out of the conference, then don't go. And also, if you can't financially make it happen, then focus on what is going to move your company forward this year and allocate funds for next year. Also, this is education in general. So if it's going to be more beneficial for you to go to a webinar that may cost money, or which typically they don't, but I have seen webinars that do cost money to attend, or a session or a course online that you'd rather take, like weigh those options. And then who should you bring? And I think that this is such an important question. It really just depends on what the conference is, first and foremost, and what the content's going to be, right? So at the Women's Summit, for example, you probably don't want to bring only the men on your team and not the women. This is obvious, right? But just kind of a thought, right? Like or the Data and Revenue Management Conference, DARM. You probably shouldn't only bring your operations employees to DARM. If you can only afford to send yourself and one other person, it should probably be your revenue manager. Or maybe you don't go and you send your revenue manager and your marketing director. It really is dependent on the content. And also, is there applicable material that you want someone on your team to see or go to? Like, is there a certain session that you really don't want to miss? Is there going to be a lot of discussion on AI and you're really trying to figure out how you can become more AI focused in your business? The takeaway there, which a lot of this is self-explanatory, is send the person who is going to benefit the most from the material or from the objective that you have for the conference. Maybe it's to attend a meeting with a vendor. Maybe it's, again, to work on an initiative that you have in mind. It ultimately doesn't matter. And it's going to hopefully be somebody new each time or each year. But I think rotating is important. And I also think that if you are sending an employee, request that they take sufficient notes and can come back and share those notes with their team or with the company as a whole. And certainly make sure that they come back and they tell you all about what they've learned and any new ideas that they have. I think it provides purpose for that employee. And also you, if you are the employer or the manager, will give you an understanding of how helpful or not helpful that conference was to the employee. And of course, like, hey, if this is your first conference and you own or run a business, you should go first and really suss out the material and decide from there what it's going to look like moving forward and who you're going to send and if it's worth it for you or your company to go to conferences in the future. Okay, so we covered this a little bit, but if you're wondering what you should be on the lookout for, number one, I would say is meeting with your vendors, whether it is vendors that you're already working with, which I highly suggest doing. A lot of times they'll reach out to you and try to set a meeting at a conference. Really, Verma International is going to be the main one where you'll start to receive those emails. You're going to receive a million emails from suppliers in general. And any companies that you might have had an eye on that you want to meet with, now is a really, really great time. Sit down at the booth with them for 15 or 20 minutes, get a quick demo, ask them some questions that you feel like you might otherwise not have gotten the same type of response or information on a phone call. Do things in person, right? That you're not going to be able to do over the phone. And then connect with property managers, particularly if they're a similar size as you, or if they're in a region that's similar to yours and has a similar seasonality. I think connecting with people that aren't direct competitors, so you feel a little bit more comfortable with sharing some information and asking questions, is so beneficial. Like, one thing that I've gotten out of going to conferences that is kind of cheesy, but so true for me, is you do get such an opportunity to build a network. And as much as I think sometimes a network or networking in general can seem like, hey, the most important thing is that you're running your own business and you're moving it forward, and like networking can be on the back burner. I agree and disagree. Of course, my job is the most important thing to me, and ensuring that my company is moving forward every single day. But I would not be able to do that without the network that I've built in the industry. Like, full stop, 100%. There are so many people so much smarter than me that I've been able to build connections with and call or text or shoot a LinkedIn message to or shoot an email to. And the benefits that have come to my business and me personally, my own professional growth, have been immeasurable. And I think that this is the case for everybody. We are in such a cool industry that's small, allows us to build connections with so many people relatively easily versus being in an industry of a million people. And so I don't know, I could rave about it all day long, but I do think that there is so much value to having a network and stretching your wings a little bit when it comes to who you're communicating with and what you can learn and how you can grow your company. And you can really do that in a lot of ways, but I would say focus on doing that through asking questions and challenging yourself with input that you get from other people in the industry who have honestly done it before and have done it longer than you and or even are really new to the industry and have a fresh perspective. Like, you can always benefit from that. Okay, I said the same thing a million times, but that's just how much it means to me, okay? So also, go to sessions that you feel are helpful, of course, like read descriptions, go to the sessions. But more than anything, when you go to sessions, you have such a good opportunity to talk to people before and after the session, whether it's the person sitting next to you or the panelists. Panelists, so much of the time, are people that are subject matter experts on what they're talking about, right? That's the point of them being on a panel. A lot of the time that you're going to hear some of the same content in panels over and over again. But if you go and you talk to that person and you give them your card or you get their information and you reach out to them, so many people are willing to get on the phone with you for 10 to 15 minutes and just kind of chat with you about any questions that you might have had that you didn't get the chance to ask in the session. So make sure you're doing networking before and after. Okay, that was like a speed round of all things conferences. Overall takeaways, right? Too long, didn't read. I learned this acronym TLDR and I love it. And that's what I like to do at the end of the episodes. So overall, are conferences worth it? It depends on what your objective is, number one. Number two, if you are extremely experienced, if you've been in the business for a really long time, you're probably not going to learn a whole lot from sessions. That doesn't mean you're not going to learn anything, because there's always something to learn, but there are going to be a lot of sessions that feel redundant to you. So my suggestion to you, particularly when it comes to VRMA, honestly, or really any conference that you have the opportunity to submit a session proposal, if you are someone that's listening to this and you say the content is stale, the sessions say the same thing every time, submit a proposal. You clearly have information that's different than what people are talking about, or you feel like you're more advanced or more knowledgeable. Submit the proposal and do a session on it. Like, that is for people to learn, right? And for you to help other people grow. So take your knowledge and take your experience and pass it on. If you get asked to do a session, give new input to whoever is the moderator if you're on a panel. And if you're doing a solo session and it's because you feel like there was stale content and you wanted to do something different, then I commend you. I think Lauren Madewell is a really, really great example of this if you have never been to one of her sessions. Okay, again, networking is almost always beneficial, and there's a huge value to having a network. So no matter what, you are going to get that out of going to a conference, particularly the conferences that are a little bit smaller. And if you are new to the industry and you're trying to figure out how you can get your feet wet and who to talk to and what to know and what you should be doing, 1000% go to a conference. And you know what? The worst thing that could happen is that you go and you feel like you didn't learn anything and you didn't like it, and then you don't have to go again. And you've lost a couple $1,000s, but you haven't taken years off your life. So try it. It's worth it. I promise. Conferences can have a mixed bag when it comes to the overall reputation, but I genuinely think that there are conferences that are worth attending. And I'm trying to think. I don't think there's a single conference that I've ever been to that I haven't walked away at least learning one thing that I could either use in my own leadership or in my own day-to-day or for the company. So if you have the funds, it's worth it. And honestly, employees love it. Employees want the opportunity to meet people, to travel. Of course, like I'm an employee, I love to travel. And it gets your team out of the day-to-day grind and gives them the opportunity to take on a new perspective and talk to people in similar fields. So for that reason alone, I think they can be worth it. Of course, always have an objective before you go. And if you can only pick one, the people have spoken, and that one should be Dharm. Okay. Short and sweet today, guys. I am very excited to talk to you next week. Content is TBD. I have a couple of ideas up my sleeve, but thank you so much for tuning in, and I can't wait to see you next time. Bye.